couple of years ago, I put out a video showing how I make pear cider using pears from my pear tree, and I actually filmed it on the very spot I'm standing right now. In the last few weeks, that video has got very popular, and I think that's because during this lockdown, there are quite a few countries that have put a prohibition on the sale of alcohol. I know that's the case in my home country of South Africa, so hello to all of you. This video is to show you an even easier way to make alcohol, and it will be ready in about a week and a half to 2 weeks time, depending on how patient you are. So let's get started. I'll show you how to make some wine using some easily accessible ingredients, and it doesn't taste half bad either. So first things first, make yourself a strong cup of black tea. There are 3 tea bags in here, just plain breakfast tea. Put that to one side for now. You're going to need your juice. Now, this here, we have 2 orange juice, so 2 1 liters of orange juice and 2 1 liters of cranberry juice. Now, you can mix and match. If you want to go all orange, you can do that. If you want to go all cranberry, you can do that. If you want to go all apple, you can do that. But I would recommend, at the very least, have some orange in there. And the other half of what you're going to be adding, try and get something that's a little bit bitter. This here has a little bit of bitterness to it. If you can get hold of grape juice itself, that's obviously going to be fantastic for this, because obviously wine is made out of grapes. Unfortunately, I can't get hold of any grape juice right now, but it does add a really nice flavor to this. Red, white, doesn't matter, mixed up. You can even go mixed up fruit juice in these boxes as well if you want. You can really experiment here and see what works best for you. So put that to one side. You're going to need something to ferment in. I've got this demi-john here. It's about 5 liters, so a 5-liter container. Get one of those. Yeast, juice, container to ferment in, and lastly, some sugar. With all this, you're going to make yourself a beautiful wine that's going to at least get you a little bit tipsy. But if you really want to take it to the next level and make it something that's actually quite tasty to drink, then we're going to need a few other ingredients. Number one, this yeast nutrient is going to help this whole thing ferment a lot better, a lot more thoroughly, and that means obviously a higher ABV, higher alcohol content. Another thing that is really good to add is pectolase. This helps bring out a lot of the flavors from the juices you're going to use, and a little bit of that works really well. Bentonite. This here is really useful to help clear this, to make it actually look really good as well, less of a cloudy drink. So a bit of bentonite will work really nicely. Then lastly, this is an interesting one. Glycerin is actually fantastic for mouthfeel. Big problem you have when you're fermenting with these plain juices and no grape juice is that you lose a bit of the mouthfeel. And the mouthfeel is like a, how do I explain it? It makes it feel a little bit thicker, a bit more full-bodied. So adding a bit of glycerin actually helps to do that. So it's a bit of a trick that you can do to really improve not only the flavors and the taste, but also what it feels like in your mouth. Let's do the mixing. Let's get stuff into this bottle and start the fermentation. Now, I would recommend cleaning everything thoroughly before you use it. It really does help to ensure the success of the fermentation. Clean everything that's going to come in contact with the wine with a bit of diluted bleach. Make sure that you rinse it thoroughly afterwards, and you should be fine. I will leave a link to a video where I show exactly how to properly sanitize, sterilize, and clean. But let's keep it simple. Bit of diluted bleach, shake it up, rinse it out with some clean water, and you're ready to go. Let's get the sugar in here. I find that adding the dry ingredients first helps, because when we start adding the liquid, it will make sure anything that's left inside the funnel is going to be pulled into the bottle. Now, it might seem like we're putting a lot of sugar in here, and we are. It's 800 grams of sugar. But all the sugar is going to be used up by the yeast to turn all this into alcohol. So this is what the whole process is about. The yeast that we add is going to eat up the sugars, release CO2 as well as alcohol, and we get our lovely 9 to 12% ABV. Let's do the basic ingredients and the stuff that you definitely need. Of course, we need our yeast. So you need 1 teaspoon of yeast. We're going to need 1 teaspoon of the yeast nutrient. This is somewhat optional, but it does make a big difference. We're going to add in some other ingredients that are going to really help this become a wine that is comparable to a £5 or £6 bottle of wine that you buy at the supermarket, you'll be hard pressed to tell too much of a difference. And I'm being quite serious with that. This actually turns out really well. So we're going to do a teaspoon of pectolase. That's what's going to help us get a bit more drawn out of the fruit, a bit more of the flavors and stuff like that. It's going to really help. The bentonite, we're going to add that now. Some people add it later in the process, but we're doing this as easy as we can. Add it now and it does a perfect job. And this here is what helps clear this. It makes it a bit more of an appealing looking wine, and you'll see that a bit later when we bottle. And then glycerin, again, 1 teaspoon. That's all you need. Any old glycerin will do, as long as it's obviously food grade. You can normally find this at the baking aisle in the supermarket, or sometimes at the chemist. And the last thing we're going to add is our tea. So that's been steeping for a while. The reason we're adding tea is because of the tannins that are in here. Now when you make traditional wine, one of the key things that is part of that winemaking process, or part of the things that makes wine so unique, are the tannins that are inside the grapes themselves, mostly in the skin. So we're going to kind of replicate that a little bit by getting some tannins from our lovely tea. So just remove the tea bags, of course, and then pour that in. And make sure you do this at the end. You don't want to pour boiling hot tea on top of the yeast, because you will probably kill it. Yeast is a living organism. So adding it at this stage, there's plenty enough volume inside there that it's not going to cause any problems with the actual yeast. And that's it. We're pretty much done. All we need to do now is put a lid on it. This here is the airlock I'm going to be using. Now there are typically 2 different types of airlocks I normally use. One is like this, and the other one is like an S shape. The S shape, unfortunately, you can't do what I'm going to be doing with this. So I'm going to take out this inner bit. You don't need that. You're going to get a bit of hose like that, and we're going to stick that over the inner part there. And that is going to allow us to have a blow off. Now, the reason you need a blow off is because this is a very active fermentation. Pressure will build up way too much. These bubbles will come up all the way to the top of here and end up causing some problems. So having a blow off, you avoid that. So we're going to get that plugged in there. The other end of the pipe is going to go into a bottle or a jar, and we're just going to get that in there. So what will happen is, when this starts producing CO2, it's going to come up through this pipe and it'll come out at the bottom of this bottle, allow the air out. But it's not going to allow air back in, because obviously the other end of the pipe is in the water. And you'll see that in progress in just a little while. You can see that there's a lot of sugar sitting at the bottom of this jar. We need to give this a good old mix. And you can do this for the first few days. You can give this a good old mix, and you'll see how the activity changes, and you'll see that that sugar gets used up pretty quickly. You want to stick this somewhere that you can maintain around about 20 degrees Celsius, and that'll help the yeast to do its job, which is eat all the sugars, release CO2, and create us some beautiful alcohol. And here's one I made earlier. So I started this about 2 weeks ago. Actually, it is 16 days ago now. and you can see the difference. This is exactly the same recipe I just showed you, and we can see that this has cleared up a hell of a lot. At the bottom here we have a lot of dead yeast, and at the top here we have our lovely alcohol. So let's decant some of this into a wine bottle and see how it tastes. Just be careful not to disturb the sediment at the bottom, or else you're going to be waiting a little while again for it all to settle. There we go, there's our bottle of wine. The clarity is decent. There are little bits in here, but that's because the orange juice I used had little bits, so there's not much I can do about that. Could probably filter it, but I'm not too bothered. It doesn't affect the flavor, just what it looks like. Smells very fruity, so probably a little fruitier than I would have liked, which means it's probably going to be a little bit sweeter than I would like, because I like a dry wine, but definitely can smell the alcohol in there. So let's pour some in and give it a try. That honestly looks pretty damn good. Now, if you left it in the bottle for a bit and put it away in the garage for a couple of months, it will definitely improve the flavor. It'll mellow out, but even as it is right now, it's still going to taste pretty decent. It smells like wine. I mean, honestly, I've smelt worse wines in my time that I've bought off the shelf, but let's give it a try. It's not bad at all. Tastes pretty damn good. Honestly, you could drink this now and it would be absolutely fine, but if you do leave it a little bit, stick it in your garage for a couple of months, forget about it, and when you come back to it, it'll just taste so much better. It'll really mellow out. It does age quite nicely inside the bottle. All the flavors come together quite well. I hope that you learned a few things from this video and that you're going to give this a try and experiment a little bit. Try and use different flavors of juice. I find that pineapple instead of cranberry is actually quite a nice addition as well. But try any old flavors, see which combination works for yourself. If you can get hold of grape juice, then that's obviously a fantastic addition. It really adds some good body to the wine. But if you can't get hold of it, like I can't, then yeah, just go with the other juices and add a little bit of glycerin. But if you do try some interesting combinations and ones that work out well for you, let us know in the comments below. I'm sure that others are going to be interested to see which combinations you found to be tasty. Anyway, until the next video, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and stay spicy.